Mel Kiper's latest two-round mock draft, the Saints address their biggest needs at OT. That's offensive tackle, ladies and gentlemen. Wide receiver, or WR, as some would say. We are here after further review with Matt Moscona. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm filming this on a Saturday. No, I'm filming this on a Friday, excuse me. Lost days of the week there. Listen, if you expected to come on this channel and see a Kellen Mond reaction video or a Equinamia St. Brown reaction video, ain't gonna happen. I couldn't believe when I hopped on YouTube today to do some videos for you guys, and I saw all these Kellen Mond videos and all these Equinamia St. Brown videos. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And some of the videos were like 12 minutes long, talking about Kellen Mond and Equinamia St. Brown for 12 plus minutes. Impossible. All I'll say about that is both those signings are completely irrelevant to the season. So let's move on. So Mel Kiper, two-round mock draft. We're going to talk about this with like I said, Matt Moscona here. So let me make this real clear about Mel Kiper and mock drafts. I've said it before and I'll say it again. There's a spot here, a gap, if you will, a chasm, if you will. There's an enormous gap between a mock draft for Mel Kiper and what an NFL front office thinks about a player. So if Mel Kiper has a player, Michael Penix, at 50th overall, and an NFL owner or GM believes Michael Penix is the top 5 pick, Michael Penix is the best quarterback in the draft, that's who you need to go with. So I would take the Mel Kiper stuff at face value at best. There's a lot of other places I would check out for their mock drafts. I actually will show a resource I like in this video, just a website for you to go peruse, if you will. Actually, sidebar, peruse, a lot of people get that definition wrong. Peruse actually means to look at intently and with focus. A lot of people use it to mean like to just scan something. Little fun fact there for me, remember, former crime reporter at a Pulitzer Prize-winning newspaper. So I know a thing or two about words. Here we go.
So Kiper's mock draft, two-round mock. No surprise with the LSU guys. He's got Jaden Daniels going to Washington. He's got Malik Neighbors going 6 to the Giants. Those are pretty commonly where all of these guys are mocked. And quite honestly,
I heard a sneaky rumor that Malik Neighbors could be the first wide receiver off the board. I don't believe it, but I heard it.
There's not a lot of surprises with what Mel Kiper has in his mock draft. And the thing that I am prayerfully hoping for in this draft is that the Saints have an opportunity to draft Olu Fashanu out of Penn State at number 14 overall, and that is where Mel Kiper has the Saints going.
What a surprise. It's easiest, most lazy, just like I said before, this is a financial advisor telling you to buy stock in Microsoft. It's like, you are not going to get fired for telling somebody to go buy Google stock, to go buy Apple stock. That is as easy, as safe, as whatever as it gets. I was on the Saints Reddit today. Good Lord have mercy. But I was on the Saints Reddit today. And I was just, looking around. I like to get a pulse of the city. I like to get a pulse of the fans, get a pulse of what people are talking about. It helps me decide, on video ideas. If there's a hot trending topic on the Reddit, I may go try and think about doing a video about it. But a lot of people on the Reddit were saying, like, their overarching thought process was to just take a tackle because it's a need and we kind of can't screw it up, was kind of their mindset. It was almost like saying, I think the safest thing you can possibly do, you take a tackle, it's nice and easy, and that's just what you're supposed to do, right? And I could not agree more. That is the problem with taking a tackle at 14, is that there's no thought to it. There's nothing exciting about it. It's not impactful. And taking a tackle at 14 is the same IMO at taking a tackle at 23, right? So it is one of those picks that makes you feel good as a fan, right? It makes you feel good because you take a lineman and you can say, see, we're building from the interior. We're building on the inside. I've had a lot of commenters say, because I've been kind of beating this drum for a while, I've had a lot of commenters say, James, you're wrong about your stance on the offensive line. You have to build from the interior. If you don't build from the interior, your tight ends can't catch the ball, your running backs can't run the ball, your quarterbacks can't throw the ball. It all begins on the inside. Well, I'll give you this little fun fact. Last year, the number 3 offensive line in the NFL was the Indianapolis Colts. The number 4 offensive line in the NFL last year was the Atlanta Falcons. Last year, the 26th offensive line was the Houston Texans. And the year the Cincinnati Bengals went to the Super Bowl, their offensive line was ranked 20th. What do you think is the difference between the Colts, the Falcons, and the Bengals and the Texans? What do you think was the reasons the Texans and the Bengals had tremendous success, yet the 3rd ranked offensive line and the 4th ranked offensive line last year did not? I will let y'all discuss that down in the comments below. But this is just one of those picks. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel like the team is doing the right thing. It makes you feel like the front office is doing the responsible thing, right? It's the responsible thing to do. This is putting your money in a savings account. This is, putting your money in a piggy bank. This you can't lose your money if it's sitting in a savings account. You can't lose your money if it's in a ceramic piggy bank, right? Sometimes in life you got to risk it. Sometimes in life you got to take a chance. Sometimes in life you got to think outside of the box. You got to evolve. You got to be innovative. You got to take that money instead of putting it in a savings account. Go be risky with it. Go put it on whatever, Bryson DeChambeau to win the Masters. Now, I'm not telling you, I'm not a fan. I'm not a financial advisor, but I would like us to think a little more innovative than just, but at 14, Olu Fashanu, Mel Kiper said it. Some guy on Reddit said it. It seems good to me. Tackle, why not?
One of the things about Dennis Allen over these past 2 years in the draft that's been maybe a bit of a change from Sean Payton's tenure is it's been pretty easy to identify what.
Damn it. I knew I should have paused it. I was going to say a big difference is that some of Sean Payton's picks, you're like, I was kind of out there. I didn't see that coming. Some of his picks were like, I wasn't expecting us to draft blank positioner. I wasn't expecting us to draft blank player right there. And then lo and behold, they turned into one of our best players. Lo and behold, they turned into a cornerstone of the Saints, whether it's Alvin Kamara, Marshawn Lattimore, Michael Thomas, the list goes on and on, right? Now, of course, Sean Payton had some duds, but it is what it is. Dennis Allen is actually very easy to identify because there is no out-of-the-box thinking, and that's kind of my point. It probably shouldn't, you probably don't want your draft picks to just be like really easily identifiable by you just sorting by your biggest need. It shouldn't be sort by need. It says here, Saints need an offensive lineman and an edge rusher. Okay, lock it in. Go ahead and delete all the other prospects. We're taking an offensive line and an edge rusher because that's our need. Like that's not exactly a good thing. I'm not saying like never draft your need or never draft what never do that. But I'm saying like if you're always doing that and you're always just drafting needs and just filling holes and that's all you utilize the draft for, I think you're missing out on a lot of value. I really do. I think you're missing out on that transcendent player unless that transcendent player happens to be your need. Like if our biggest need was cornerback and we drafted Cooper DeJean and say, okay, maybe he will be the best cornerback in the NFL. Like maybe he will be that impactful. Okay, that could certainly be a game changer. Yeah. All right. But, it's just one of those things where I would like to see a little bit of innovation. I would like to see a little bit of thinking outside the box with the front office.
The Saints' needs are in a given year, and they go address them. When 2 years ago, we all knew they needed receiver help, and they drafted Chris Olave. He was the guy that was tied to the Saints early. They picked him. They also needed help at tackle because you saw Teron Armstead leaving free agency, and they drafted Trevor Penning. Now, they didn't hit on Penning. They hit on Olave. They didn't hit on Penning, but they went receiver, offensive tackle. A year ago, we all knew they needed defensive line help. Brian Brzee was a very commonly mocked player to New Orleans. They took him. We knew they needed help on the edges after losing Trey Hendrickson. They took Isaiah Foskey with an early round 2 pick. We knew last year, everyone talked about running back. They're going to take a running back. A lot of people thought it would be Tajay Spears from Tulane. It ended up being Kendre Miller from TCU. The needs for this team.
The Tajay Spears Tulane thing, that's a good example, right? Like a lot of people mocking this. It's like, oh, well, Tajay Spears plays at Tulane. Like he's in New Orleans. The Saints got to draft him. And then you remember Dennis Allen played at A&M. Like he's not from here. He doesn't, he's not walking around uptown on his days off. players here don't have that kind of not most players don't have that loyalty to the city. Most of the front office doesn't have that loyalty to the city. So that's one of those things where, like, mock drafters, it sounds cool. It kind of fits into a nice, neat puzzle, but teams don't really think like that. Just like Michael Pratt. Like Michael Pratt, a lot of people are like, oh, he played at Tulane. It'd be cool if the Saints drafted him. The Saints probably want Tulane guy. The LSU guy. Like LSU guy in the dome. The Saints probably looking at the LSU guys. Yeah. But they're probably not. They have no ties. Like I said, like Dennis Allen and Mickey Loomis in the front office, they want to win. They're looking at the best player available. So I think it's a good indicator of what I'm talking about with the mock drafts and the front offices, where the mock drafters and the SB Nation or the writers and whoever, the Canal Street Chronicle authors, they're trying to paint this like pretty perfect puzzle. They're trying to fit a Sudoku puzzle, and in the third round, fourth round, it's like, oh, the Saints need this position. Oh, there's a Tulane player at this position. There's an LSU player at this position. Plug them in there. And then every mock draft just compiles the same thing over and over, and that's how you get it spit out. So, like I said, I'd be careful with the mock drafts. I'd be careful with falling into those same kind of traps and tropes.
Team seemed pretty obvious to identify, and at least in the past 2 drafts with Dennis Allen, they've stayed true to drafting that way.
They've stayed safe. Is the appropriate way to say that. They've stayed safe.
So when you look at this team, the most obvious needs right now are offensive tackle, because you have an uncertain future with Ramczyk, and you don't have a left tackle. You drafted Trevor Penning to be that guy. It hasn't worked out. You had Hurst and Pete there last year. Hurst took a pay cut to stay. Pete's a free agent right now, so you need a left tackle. You got to. I guess you could run it back with Penning and see, but you don't even have an option there right now. So
I think Penning sucks. I think I have absolutely made my stance on that. But it is kind of funny how everyone's like, the Saints need a left tackle. The Saints need a tackle. The Saints need a tackle. The Saints need a tackle. And no one has been like, they just drafted a tackle. The Saints have a tackle. I know that Penning sucks, but no one has stopped and said they did just spend a draft pick on a tackle. We have given up on Trevor Penning, but have the Saints? Because if the Saints drafted a left tackle, they have kind of given up on Trevor Penning. And then, so I think that's kind of interesting, where when you talk about it like that and you say, well, the Saints' biggest needs are offensive tackle and pass rusher. And then you're like, well, they have Ryan Ramczyk. Granted, his knee, who knows? They did just draft Trevor Penning, and they did just sign Chase Young. And they did just draft Brian Brzee on the interior, and they did just sign Kalen Saunders. All of a sudden, then it's like, well, damn, they could do whatever they want. And you look at it like that, it's like, man, maybe they aren't so pigeonholed into offensive line or pass rusher. When you look at it like that, it's like, well, they kind of can do whatever. Every position is kind of open. That's how I look at it. And that's why I keep making these videos, because I keep seeing the same thought. I keep seeing the same groupthink. Saw the same groupthink in Reddit. Someone posted a beautiful picture of our sweet prince, Brock Bowers, in a Saints uniform. And it said, what do y'all think about drafting Brock Bowers? The comments were all like, only if he moves to offensive tackle. Did Brock Bowers change his position to offensive tackle? He should be an offensive tackle. Let's draft an offensive tackle. Draft an offensive tackle. No, got to go O-line. No, go O-line, 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 O-line. And it was all this groupthink. It was all this just O-line, because everyone feels like that's a safe thing to do. That's the thing. That's the pick that people that we're going to see. We're going to see Roger Goodell walk up there and say the Saints take Olu Fashanu, 14 overall, and then everyone's going to turn off their TV and they're going to sleep nice and sound. And they're going to lay there in bed and they're going to be snoring away saying, oh, Saints took an offensive lineman. They did it. They did it. I can go to sleep now. They'll rest their little head. They'll rest their head and they'll shut their eyes and they'll go to sleep. I don't want that, man. I'm telling you. I don't want that. I'm not saying I don't want an offensive lineman, but I just have a bad feeling about this easy, safe groupthink mentality. I'm all for getting an offensive lineman. I'm all for it. I am not for it at pick 14. I'm for it if we trade down. I'm for it with our second pick, but I'm not for it at 14.
So that's your most gigantic need. That's very likely what they're going to do at 14 or trade up if there's someone they absolutely fall in love with to get that player. For me, I'll say it again, I think a best case scenario for New Orleans in this draft, best case, is they stay at 14 and Olu Fashanu is there out of Penn State. That's a guy who a year ago, had he come out, a lot of people projected would have been a top 10 pick, maybe the number one tackle in the draft.
Okay, so this is where I'm going to bring in my resource that I was talking about. Okay, so I'm a big fan of this website. It's called Walter Football. This is Charlie Campbell is the author of this. So this is one of those websites I always reference where they're doing legit work. Like they're doing legitimate film grading. They're doing legit analytical breakdown. They do attribute stuff. They do power rankings during the season. Like this is a website. This is not a hot take website. This is not a clickbait garbage website. This is not any of that stuff. This is like football dudes no ball type website. When I reference a lot of analytics, when I reference a lot of stats and all that stuff, I ain't going to Yahoo Sports. I ain't going to ESPN. Okay, I'm going to a lot of deep resources, and I'm going to start sharing them in videos when they're relevant because I think the audience on this channel are very smart. They know ball. They want to know ball. They want the resources, so I'll share them. So, yeah, like I said, they have power rankings here, even some fantasy football stuff, and whatever. So, anyways, the reason I showed this, so this is the offensive line. He just recently did the position review of offensive tackles. Now, interestingly, you can see here, so the offensive tackle class, he's giving an A+ on early round talent, an A- on mid round, A- on late round, overall grade A, aka very heavy, deep draft for offensive tackles. Okay. Now, also interesting, if you merge the 2023 and 2024 prospects, this is what the class would look like. So this is a good way to know, because a lot of the times in a position, like you'll see a guy who it's like, oh, he's the number one wide receiver this year. But you're like, he's not really that good. And then you look at something like this, the merging of the two classes, and he might be like the 6th or 7th wide receiver. And you're like, okay, well, he's not that good. This is just kind of a weak class. So when you look at this, so we're merging the last two, okay? Also, I'm always talking about it's hard to figure out how good offensive linemen are. Top of your head. Don't cheat. Don't cheat. How good was Paris Johnson Jr., Darnell Wright, Peter Skoronski, Broderick Jones, Anton Harrison, Tyler Steen, Wanya Morris, and Nick Well, we know Nick Saldivari. But how good were they last year? How good were they in their rookie year? What grade would you give Darnell Wright? What grade would you give Broderick Jones? What grade would you give Paris Johnson Jr.? I bet a lot of y'all are like, damn, I hope he doesn't call on me because I don't know. Damn, I have no idea. How do you grade an offensive lineman? Ooh, I don't know. 75? C-? What do I say? I don't know. I'm right there with you. I have no clue either. And I watch every second of every game. All right, so Joe Alt is the best tackle of the class. Like, he is the best. Pop quiz. Did Broderick Jones start last year? Ooh, I don't know. Oh, what team's he on? I have no idea. I hear you. So Joe Alt's top guy, right? He would be the top tackle in both classes. So Joe Alt's solid, okay? Paris Johnson Jr. from last year would be the second. J.C. Latham is his third. And remember, this is all this guy's opinion. So J.C. Latham would be his third overall, second in this class. Darnell Wright, Amarius Mims would be the fifth overall, third in this class. And then we get Fashanu, who would be fourth in this class and sixth overall. So you can see the whole list right here. I won't read the whole thing. But this is where he has them rated, and then where he has them with the two classes together. Okay? So if you're taking Fashanu at 14, according to this guy, you're taking the fourth best tackle in this draft, and you're taking the 6th best tackle prospect of the last 2 years. Again, this article and series is all his opinion based on his own study and information he's gotten from general managers. directors of scouting, national scouts, area scouts, and NFL coaches. So this is something else about this website that I like. Charlie Campbell also is connected with front offices, as he says right here. General managers, scouting, all that stuff. So he's taking what they're telling him. So if a director of college scouting or a national scout or an area scout tells him, hey, man, J.C. Latham is the second best tackle in this draft, he's going to take that seriously. And I would too, because that's their job, and they know more. They know way more than he does. So I respect that a lot about him. He's not Mel Kiper, where Mel Kiper thinks Mel Kiper is God. This guy has taken general managers, scouts, all that stuff, their thoughts into it. Okay. If you go down further, he's got the safest pick is Joe Alt. So Joe Alt, while Joe Alt is not an elite prospect like Penei Sewell, Alt is one of the safest prospects in the draft, regardless of position. Yeah, because he's an offensive lineman. Alt is big, strong, and has developed technique. Whether he's playing left or right, Alt should turn into a quality pro starter. I think this is the ceiling for a lot of offensive linemen. This is how I look at it. When you draft an offensive lineman, you are hoping for a quality pro starter. Because if you're a quality pro starting offensive lineman for 10 years, you're probably a Hall of Famer. It's hard. Like a quality pro starter running back can mean a lot of different things. A quality pro starter quarterback can mean a lot of different things, right? A quality pro starter offensive lineman kind of means the same thing, right? It kind of is the same guy. And that's why I always say the impact is much less. All right. Biggest bust potential, Tyler Guyton. I think that's kind of expected. I think Guyton's pretty raw. I think we knew that. But you look at some of the other guys, Anton Harrison, Bernard Raymond, James Hudson, Ezra Cleveland. I don't know any of these cats. Ranking by attribute. So now he takes an NFL prototype. So now we have Laramie Tunsil and a pass protection tackle. Laramie Tunsil, one of the best pass protection tackles in the game. Who's closest to that? This is interesting too, because if you're sitting here and you're screaming and you're like, we want the best tackle to keep Derek Carr up. We want a pass protecting offensive lineman. And you're sitting here saying that must be Olu Fashanu, because Olu Fashanu is on the top of all the mock drafts you're looking at. And then you look at this and you're like, well, wait a minute. This guy has Olu Fashanu as the 5th best pass protecting tackle in this draft. What am I missing? Well, maybe the Mel Kiper ranking isn't the best. All right. So now the question is, my question for Matt, Moscona, and a lot of the people who keep screaming Olu Fashanu is, what about Amarius Mims? Why not Amarius Mims? Why not J.C. Latham? Why not Jordan Morgan? What do you think about these guys? Have you thought about these guys? Or are you only thinking about Olu Fashanu, Fuaga, and Fatanu? Are you only thinking about those guys because these are the guys that are at the top of every mock draft? That's my question. And their answer is probably going to be, yeah. I'm looking at these guys because they're on top of every mock draft. I haven't even looked into these other cats. All right, so then you go to run protection. Run blocking. J.C. Latham, Joe Alt, Mims, Fuaga, Fashanu. So Mims now is first in pass protection, third in run blocking for this guy. And overall, you got Mims is his 3rd tackle. Fashanu is his 4th of this class. So if you're banging the drum for Fashanu and you see this, what do you think? I have certainly not been banging the drum for any of these linemen. So what do you think about this? When you see this, if you've been sitting here screaming, Fashanu at 14, Fashanu at 14, offensive lineman at 14, offensive lineman at 14, does this make you think, maybe there are different options? Maybe we should look at some of these other guys. And then it goes into their feet. NFL prototype, who's got the best feet? Jordan Morgan. You can see the rankings here. Zone blocking. Again, you got Fatanu, Mims, Fashanu. Man scheme. Mims is number 1. Fashanu's 5th in man. I would guess this is all about their physicality. If it's just a man, beat your man in front of you. Guard, right tackle potential. There you go. So yeah, I just wanted to show a resource. I'll put this in the description below. But it's interesting to look at this other kind of stuff. Because when you start breaking it down by attributes, start breaking it down by all of that, then it's like how many people that are screaming every day? It's the same names, right? The same names we're hearing every single day is Fuaga and Fashanu. I've heard those two. I mean, those two have been in headlines and thumbnails of every YouTuber that covers the Saints, besides me. Fuaga and Fashanu. How many of the people that have been saying Fashanu and Fuaga have even looked at their run blocking versus their pass protection, their zone blocking versus their man? I would guess very little.
And if that's a guy that's sitting there for you at 14, that feels like a gigantic win. I'll say it again. It's like he just happens to be in a draft that's tackle heavy, where you've got Joe Alt and J.C. Latham and Fotanu out of Washington and Fuaga out of Oregon State. It's all the guys with F's in their last name. Fashanu, Fuaga, Fotanu. We'll get them all. But it's a deep tackle draft. I say the comp is Brian Thomas. If Brian Thomas was in last year's draft, he's a top 10 pick. He's just in a draft where in this mock that Mel Kiper's put out, he's got 10 wide receivers going in the first 39 picks. 10 out of the first 39 picks.
It's funny that Matt just referenced this draft class since we just looked at the merge of the two draft classes and we saw where Fashanu was in that. So it's interesting that he referenced that.
You didn't have a wide receiver come off the board until the end of round 1 last year. So this just happens to be a draft where the Saints' two biggest needs are offensive tackle and wide receiver. And the two deepest positions, maybe outside of quarterback, the two deepest positions in this draft are offensive tackle and receiver.
But that kind of throws a wrinkle into it, right? Like that throws a wrinkle into the whole thing. That this has, I honestly, I feel like the closer we get to the draft and the more that all these other channels put out these videos of mock drafts and they keep talking through it, the more they do that, I really feel like they're getting closer and closer and closer and closer to what we've been saying since January. My first video that I said to take Brock Bowers was January 22nd. I went and looked it up because I claimed that we were the first to kind of have this outside the box mindset when it came to the draft, which I still hold. If anyone, is before me, let me know. But the more they talk about it, the more they're like, our biggest need are these two positions, but it is the deepest in those two positions. If you continue with that line of thought, it would lead you to, well, if it's an A-plus tackle draft and there's a ton of tackles, we don't have to take one at 14. If it's a really deep pass rusher draft, we don't have to trade up from 14 to 10 to get one. Maybe we can get creative. Maybe we can trade down and still address our needs while getting draft capital. Maybe we can take a chance on a Cooper DeJean or on a Brock Bowers or on a Brian Thomas or on a Malik Neighbors or whoever. Maybe we can take a chance early, get a stud player, and still get a tackle or an edge or two tackles later in a very tackle-rich draft. We're getting close to that. My prediction is that when we get really close to the draft, like a couple days before the draft, I think that's when you're going to see the realization. And I think it's going to hit people where they're going to be like, oh, we should take Brock Bowers. And just all of a sudden, all these people who've been saying take Fuaga, take offensive line, are going to be saying take this safety and take this cornerback and take this linebacker and take this whatever. And we're going to be sitting here with 5 months of videos saying that. It's at this point now, to me, it's obvious. It's obvious there's more to this draft than just say offensive line. No doubt about it, got to be an offensive line. everything points to this being a deep offensive line draft. We are in a perfect position to move around. Do you hear that? So in New Orleans, we've been doing these party bus things. I'm not even sure if they're illegal. They're these giant buses. Y'all hear the music? Y'all gotta be able to hear that. But there's these buses. One of them is painted like the Scooby-Doo's bus, the Mystery Machine. One's painted like that. One is like black and red, and they take all the seats out of them, and people just go on there and wild out. It's like a club. Like there's strobe lights going. There's all kind of stuff, and the buses, they're like school buses, and they just drive around the city. They just drive around downtown, and it's crazy. It's the craziest thing in the world. Some of them don't have windows. I don't know how it's legal.
It's no surprise that at 45, Kiper's mocking a receiver to New Orleans, and it's the guy we talked about earlier this week who the Saints brought in for a top 30 visit, and it's Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky. And it makes a lot of sense because Malachi Corley is a slot receiver. You're losing Michael Thomas. He's physically a different player. He's 5'10", whereas Thomas is 6'3". But he's a slot receiver, fits that mold, and is a guy that a lot of teams really like. Whatever the case may be, however it plays out, I think this much is true. If the Saints stay at 14, there's going to be an elite offensive tackle there for them. And if they stay at 45, there's going to be an elite wide receiver. They're going to get value at their two biggest need spots in this draft.
Hold up. When the hell did wide receiver become one of our biggest need spot? I would say wide receiver is one of our most consistent set positions. And I'm not even that high on A.T. Perry. But Olave, Rashid Shaheed, A.T. Perry, I mean, you could do worse than that. I would be fine with taking a wide receiver. I've been saying Lad McConkey, and I'd be fine with a wide receiver. I'd be fine if we took Neighbors or Brian Thomas or any of these guys. But I wouldn't say it's like a huge need. I wouldn't say it's a need, our second biggest need. Do y'all think wide receiver is one of our biggest needs? I think tight end is a bigger need than wide receiver. And wide receiver is an old way of looking at it. Anyways, it should just be pass catcher. But I mean, it's kind of, I don't know about that. I don't know about that one. That one kind of blew my mind right there.
They just stay put at 14 and 45. Hey, thanks so much.
All right. I mean, I'm going to keep beating the drum. I just want people to think. I want us to think outside the box. I want us to evolve. I want us to innovate. There's more to it. I'm telling y'all, there's more to it. There's more to it than just, okay, offensive line sort by top offensive line. Mel Kiper says Fashanu, thus we got to take Fashanu. I mean, that is the algorithm that they are doing. The algorithm they are doing is we need an offensive lineman. Who is the top offensive lineman remaining on Mel Kiper's board? Joe Alt is going to, I think he's been putting him with the Chargers at 5. Joe Alt's gone. Okay, go down. Who's the next one? Fashanu. Okay, we're going to take Fashanu at 14. That's it. That's all the work that's being put into this when people say Fashanu. Meanwhile, I've just showed y'all this website. Very well trusted. I want to say Walter Football has been the best, most accurate draft forecaster for 3 straight years. So it's a legitimate website. Meanwhile, this website's over here actually, he's the 4th best tackle in this draft. We got to start opening our eyes, ladies and gentlemen. Got to start opening your eyes. Start thinking. Don't just copy and paste. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy your weekend. I will see you in the next video.